Hello and welcome to the 2020 Political Forum presented by the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce. My name is Brian Wazina and I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us. The Rocky Hill Chamber is proud to present this program to help get information out to the voters. We're recording this forum in 4 separate interviews, which will all be available at rhchamber.org. This year, we've decided to do things a little differently, and we are meeting all the candidates virtually, and they're all joining us from wherever they are today in the world. Today, we're joined by Representative Carrie Wood, representing Connecticut's 29th District in the State House of Representatives. This district covers all of Rocky Hill and parts of Newington and Wethersfield. Carrie, I'd like to start off by hearing a little bit about you, and can you tell our audience about your background and how you ended up here running for office?
Hi, everybody. Brian, thank you so much for doing this. I want to thank the Rocky Hill Chamber for having me on. So I born and raised in Rocky Hill, and I went to all the Rocky Hill public schools. I went to Mosier School pre-Reconstruction, and I also went to West Hill School, and I got redistricted, so I went to Stevens School as well, the middle school and the high school, and I had a wonderful education. And after high school, I went to college at American University in Washington, D.C., and I studied political science and business. I interned on Capitol Hill and really loved the whole experience, but I missed home. So I came back to Rocky Hill and started a marketing company. And from there, I went into corporate America at one of GE's companies called Momentive Performance Materials. And I was only there for a few years when I got asked to join a growing real estate company. There was about 5 of us when I started, and the company grew to one of the largest construction companies in Connecticut, and I really got the bug for real estate. I got my realtor's license, and today I'm working at New England Retail Properties in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and I work with some of the best tenants there are. I work with Costco, Madison Reed, Go Health Urgent Care. I also work with some amazing landlords, and I help lease and sell their properties. And for me, I did a lot of interaction with state government and state agencies, and I saw a lot of room for improvement. So when in 2018, the 29th seat opened up, I threw my hat in the ring, went campaigning, and was elected state representative. So I bring a lot of my private sector experience to the job, and it's been really fun, and we've made some headway, and we have a lot more work to do.
Let's start right off with questions about the budget. 2021 is a budget year. The state is projected to have a deficit of over $2 billion in each of the next 2 budget cycles. Tax revenue from businesses is expected to be down, as well as income from employees. How do you propose we balance the budget, and can we do this without raising taxes on businesses that are already struggling from the effects of the pandemic?
This is such a great question, Brian, and I'm glad you're asking everybody this, because this is really going to be one of the toughest budget cycles. And I do not support taxes on anyone, especially our middle class, especially our small businesses here. And I have really kind of, the beat of my drum is you reinvest in Connecticut and you innovate your way out of this pandemic. And that's exactly what I have been doing. The Angel Investor Tax Credit Program that we implemented in the Commerce Committee is funding incubator biotech startups here in Connecticut, and the return on investment has been huge. We can take that model and apply it to other sectors. The other thing I have done in commerce is invested in our growing manufacturing sector by expanding the apprenticeship training programs. And we also provide some matching grants for manufacturers to buy equipment. So investing in our companies here in Connecticut is how we are going to close that budget cap, by having a healthy economy and one that is vibrant and growing. So the other thing I want to say is I know I kind of started off that this is going to be a tough budget, but 2 years ago when we passed the budget, we put a lot of money into the rainy day fund, which is capped at 15% of our total budget. We have maxed that program out. There's $3.1 billion currently in the rainy day fund. and additional revenue every time we hit that cap goes into paying down our debt liability. So we have set ourselves up to have a very strong credit and to weather this pandemic better than any other state out there. We are currently ranked number 7 in terms of having the best opportunity for getting through our next budget cycle. So the good news is we do have some money in the bank, but we are going to have to make tough decisions. The governor has also proposed a 10% cut across state agencies and asked them to start looking for finding those savings. And 2 years ago, I also passed a bill that encouraged state employees to find ways to eliminate waste and encourages them to also get incentivized. They can actually receive 10% of the net savings. So I think with a lot of the programs we've put into place, the rainy day fund, we are going to be in good shape, and I'm confident we do not have to raise taxes.
Now, Connecticut has been one of the more aggressive states when it comes to shutting down businesses and schools during the pandemic. Do you think the governor is doing a good job with the shutdown? And what kind of support can be provided to industries that have not even been allowed to open since March? And if positive cases go on the rise again, is our only choice to shut down the state again?
I think that we put drastic measures in place because we didn't really understand what we were getting into. Shutting down is something of the past. What we need to do going forward is called pandemic management. And this is what is coming out of Harvard University as a tool and a way for us to operate safely and function as safe as we can without having to continue to close things down. We didn't even wear masks when this first thing started. So we now are doing the proper protocols of social distancing and wearing masks and spacing out and limiting the number of people that are indoors. So I am really going to lobby and push that we do not look back at what we did in March, which was to close businesses down, but really encourage us to open in a safe way. How we can help our businesses here is, there's some businesses that are doing really well. For example, if you're a grocery store or a liquor store or a Costco or a BJ's, your sales are through the roof right now. But there are other businesses, like if you own an escape room or if you're a full service restaurant, how are we going to help those businesses 6 months from now be in a better position? And we were given $1.4 billion from the CARES Act from the federal government. I have lobbied our governor to set aside about $25 million of those funds to give those companies a reimbursement. Many of these companies, if you've been out to eat, Brian, you've probably seen there's tents and there's heaters and there's plexiglass everywhere. Let's give them some of that money back. They've spent tens of thousands of dollars, and they're really probably making almost, nearly half of the sales that they did a year ago. So, I'd like to provide people a little bit of help. And additionally, we can use our Small Business Express program through DECD to help those smaller businesses that really need extra assistance over the next 6 months. Performing arts, even, museums, just trying to think, theaters, all of these things where there's a lot of people indoor. There's so many businesses that are teetering and on the brink of closing. And I think we'll be taking them for granted now, and if they do go under, we'll be kicking ourselves saying, I really wish we did something different. So those are some of the things that I'd like to invest in, to help get us through the storm. And also, I did want to say that we are doing some really amazing testing here in the state that I really hope rolls out soon. Testing that's rapid on the molecular level that will help us go without masks indoor to spaces and kind of get back to normal. So I'm looking forward to having those companies roll that technology out in the future.
Let's talk public safety. There's been an increase in car thefts in Rocky Hill and across the state. And recently, a controversial police accountability bill was passed. What can you do at the state level to help protect residents from car thefts and crime? And can you talk to us about if you support the police accountability bill and why?
Sure. I'd like to first talk about the police accountability bill. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about this bill. The first thing is I hear people saying that there's a defunding police movement in Connecticut. And I want to just reiterate to people that this bill does not defund police, but it actually gives additional funding for things like cameras, body cams, and dashboard cams. There are 64 sections of this bill. And when the bill came out, the first thing I did was call the police chiefs, talk to patrolmen and women, and ask for their comments on that I could take to my colleagues. And there are three very controversial sections. The first is qualified immunity. The second is use of force. And the third is consent searches. I took those comments up to the Capitol during special session. And I will say that going into the debate, we had enough votes to pull those sections from the bill. And as the debate went on and the night went on and, people were lobbied very hard, we ended up losing a lot of those votes and we weren't able to make the changes that we wanted to. But I will tell you that those three things will be seen in a full legislative session and go through the committee process and the hearing process, which to me I'm very supportive of. I think, I would have liked to see the whole bill go through the process, but there are good things in the bill. And the good things are providing more training to our officers, providing more assistance with mental health issues, providing more tools to officers, bringing in an inspector general to help with cases that have been lingering for a while. So I would ask people to look at the whole bill. There are 64 total sections, so there is a lot to it. And if there are additional things that need to be changed in the bill, to please reach out and let us know what those are, because to date I have heard of those three most controversial sections. Regarding crime, it's been really tough to see what's gone on in our suburbs, and there's a disparity between the haves and the have-nots, unfortunately, that we're witnessing during COVID. While we have households with parents that are helping kids get the education and the support they need, in our cities, the kids are just not getting, that same treatment, and they're turning to, coming to the suburbs in the middle of the night and robbing, cars, and, where does that lead to? So in the short term, I'd like to see more patrols and the hours where the crime has been going up in the evening. I'd like to hear from our local PDs on tools that they need to do the job better, whether it's increased technology. I've read about things like dummy vehicles that can trap, some of these thieves. I think this is a team effort that we all need to be at the table, because doing nothing right now really is not working. So the long term, I have talked to our chief state's attorney about juvenile justice reform. I think what's happening is that even when kids do get caught, they're just getting a hand slap. The punishment is not severe enough to cause them to change behavior. So we do need to look at our laws. We do need to make sure that we are doing the right thing, not only to protect our suburbs, but to make sure these kids are getting, off the streets, punished if they need to be, and given a better, direction. I think even having curfews in the cities, some sort of night programs, night sports and things, we really need to change what's going on, because I'm just, really sad for kids that are getting lost in this. And I'm really worried for our community. Right now they're robbing cars, but, someone was shot at a few weeks ago. What happens when they start going into homes? This is going to spiral out of control. I want to make sure that I am a partner in helping our towns manage this crime and do whatever I can to make sure we work as a team and to slow this down and make sure it doesn't happen, going forward. So I think we have a lot of work to do. It's a long-winded answer. I'm sorry. I wish we could snap our fingers and have a solution tomorrow. But I am willing to, help, and I will be working on this should I get reelected next year.
Aside from COVID-19 taking a toll on businesses and residents have had to deal with an increase in utility costs from Eversource, MDC, and the internet companies. What can you do to help keep these costs down? And is there anything you can do to bring more choices for our utilities in Connecticut?
Well, I want to start with the internet because I had gotten a lot of calls from people saying that their Cox bill is going through the roof. And what are other options? And I know that Frontier is in the market, and there's a new internet provider, GoNetspeed, that is coming in. GoNetspeed will be coming to Rocky Hill in areas where there's poles. So any neighborhood that has underground wiring, is not going to be able to have this additional service, unfortunately. So yes, increased competition does lower costs. So I do want to make sure that I do lobby these companies to come into Wethersfield, Rocky Hill, and Newington. Regarding other utilities, we kind of, have one company that gives us water, that's MDC, and we have one company that provides our electricity. And these costs are spiraling. They're becoming unaffordable for many families. And I've reached out to town officials and said, let's think outside the box on this. Wallingford has their own electrical provider. They're some of the cheapest electricity in the state. What happens if Rocky Hill approached Eversource and said, we want to control, the wires and distribution and start our own service here? I think we need to either look at this town by town or form a partnership with other towns and find what other solutions there are, because sitting back and saying this is, who's, providing these services is just not working anymore. At the state level, we just passed a bill called Take Back the Grid, and you will be seeing about an 89% savings per month on the bill with some of the things we did, which was cap employer compensation, provide a performance-based rating, and if there are long-term power outages, to compensate people for the time after 96 hours and also give money to families if they lost food and medicine. That's just a Band-Aid bill. That was in response to, the storm. I think we need to be doing a lot more in terms of generating electricity here in Connecticut. A lot of the costs, this delivery charge that we're seeing, that's about 3 times more than any other state, is because we're not generating enough here. In 2019, we passed a bill that allowed about 20 kilowatts of wind power, which will be coming off the New London shore. That's huge. That is the same amount of generation that Millstone currently provides our state. So, we have a lot of work to do in terms of generation here, but we have a lot of work to do to make sure our utilities are accountable. And additionally, let's look at some other options. We're not stuck to doing things as they always have been. So I'd like to try to see what other options we can provide customers here in our towns.
In the past few years, there have been bills introduced in Connecticut for a government-run healthcare option. The insurance and healthcare industries, which are some of Connecticut's largest employment sectors, are against the public option, saying that they will have to cut jobs. Are you in favor of a public option healthcare plan? If so, what will this plan look like? And if you're against it, how will you address the rising cost of health insurance?
I want to start the answer to this question by saying that our healthcare industry is a highly unregulated for-profit industry. So, we have that to start with. One of the things that we did recently was cap the cost of insulin. That is now providing government regulation. We can also do things like allow generic drugs from Canada to be brought in to our healthcare system, which will help some of the prescription drug costs. But really, competition is what breeds lower costs. I want to make sure that we have a competitive healthcare system while providing the best services that we have at a lower cost. We can ask, working with the federal government, we can ask our healthcare providers to list the cost of services, which currently they do not do. You go in to get an operation, you have no idea how much the cost is until you get the bill. But wouldn't it be nice to compare costs across different health systems? I think our insurance industry, which we were known as the insurance capital of the world, needs to grow here in our state. What are we doing to ask our insurers to say, how do you hire more people? How do you expand your services? They're now doing telehealth. They now have data centers. Are those growing here in Connecticut? Because last I looked, they're growing in Silicon Valley. They're going to Austin, Texas. But I'd like those sectors to come to our healthcare, hub of the world here in Hartford and grow. So, having that sort of we're open for business mentality with the insurance companies, I think is key. And there's also a whole education component to customers that have insurance about how we need to be asking better questions and making sure that we are covered in what we sign up for. Additionally, we can do something called a benchmarking of healthcare costs. This is something that has been done in other states like Massachusetts, and it has saved a lot of money. And we really, as a state, set a number to the cost in healthcare that we want to spend. And we work towards coming in under that benchmark. It has successfully worked and lowered costs in other states. Let's see, what else did I want to say? I think I covered everything, but it is a big topic. I'd like to see more competition. And I think it's a combination of things, which is both private and public sector. So, the one other thing I wanted to add was, if you are a state employee, our comptroller manages our healthcare system. And what he has done over the past few years is open this up for municipalities to join. So having this large segment of people all in one sector gives us a buying power and helps drive down costs. So I think, using that model, CBIA does this for their business members. Being part of a larger segment to negotiate lower costs, is another tool that we can be using for businesses and municipalities.
Now I got 3 questions left, and I'm looking for shorter answers with these ones because I think we could do them quick. So let's start off. If tolls come back on the table, would you vote for tolls?
There's a reason why we don't have tolls, Brian, and the reason why that ship has sailed, and it's because it was very unpopular. I am very supportive of a transportation plan that brings us to the 21st century. Our trains are slower, we still have bottlenecks on our road. We're not talking about autonomous vehicle lanes that other states are doing. We need more of an electric fleet and electric vehicle charging stations. So we are lagging behind, and I'd like to see us, number one, build some trust with the public on our special transportation fund and make sure that is funded the way we tell our taxpayers it's funded. And number two, set our sights much bigger on a transportation plan that is competitive throughout the country.
Would you vote to legalize marijuana for recreational use?
This is another topic that has come up last session. I have done a lot of research on it. There is a huge economic gain for our state. There's a jobs estimate of 17,000 new jobs for the state of Connecticut, an estimated $225 million a year in added revenue to the state. I would vote to legalize marijuana as long as we made sure we were properly funding programs to educate people on using it in a safe way and making sure that it doesn't get into the hands of children.
What is one cost that you could cut today from the state budget?
So I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I have seen our executive level outsource a lot of contracts to companies that are not here in Connecticut. So I would really like to see us stop using outside companies, and part of that reinvest in Connecticut that I was talking about earlier, use our local talent, which I think is the best that we have. And putting my realtor hat on, especially now with COVID and seeing all of these state buildings being vacant, we can look at the assets that we have as a state, sell those, maybe do a sale leaseback. We have land, but we really need to look at all of these assets that are bleeding money right now and get those off our books. And I think there's a lot of money that is being wasted, a lot of money that can be saved if we did get rid of get out of the business of owning so much real estate.
Now, that was my last question, but in closing, is there anything you would like to add to today's program for the viewers?
Yeah, I think that I really would like everyone to just look at my record. I'm a moderate Democrat. I'm very fiscally conservative. I did not support any tax increases. I did pass tax decreases. We have no income tax on our Social Security, pension, and annuity income, which will be fully phased out by 2025. I want to continue doing things like that. I want to focus on the affordability issue here in Connecticut. I think it's really important that as our economy gets stronger, we're able to give relief to people here by lowering taxes and encouraging growth. So that's the legislator that I've been over the past 2 years, and I'll continue to be. And for anyone that's reached out to me, I'm extremely accessible. I have my cell phone number and my email everywhere. I really enjoy helping people, and my door is always open.
Well, Carrie, on behalf of the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank you so much for participating in this event. And you can find more information about the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce at rhchamber.org. And please go support a Rocky Hill business today. Thank you. Today, we're joined by Henry Vassell, candidate for Connecticut's 29th district in the State House of Representatives. This district covers all of Rocky Hill and parts of Newington and Wethersfield. Henry, I'd like to start off by hearing a little bit about you, and can you tell our audience about your background and how you ended up here today running for office?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Henry Vassell, and I'm running for State Representative District 29. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce, first of all, Community TV, and all of you for taking the time to listen to the candidate views. I have been endorsed by the Republican and Independent parties as the voice of reason. I listen to my constituents. Supporters tell me I have the best background and skill set to be the voice of District 29 at the Capitol. I am a small business owner with a bachelor's degree in finance from Central Connecticut State University. I've spent the last 20 plus years serving Rocky Hill and surrounding towns as a volunteer firefighter. I'm the vice president of the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce, an organization which helps promote small business. I serve as the president of the Rocky Hill Education Foundation, which helps raise funds to support our schools. You've probably seen me around town as I live in Rocky Hill. Most importantly, I'm the only candidate for District 29 that supports our police. Please go to Henry Vassell for State Rep on Facebook or henryforstaterep.com to learn more or ask questions. Thank you.
Let's start right off with some budget questions. 2021 is a budget year. The state is projected to have a deficit of over $2 billion in each of the next 2 budget cycles. Tax revenue is projected to be down from businesses as well as income tax from employees. How do you propose we balance the budget, and can we do it without raising taxes on businesses that are already struggling from the effects of the pandemic?
Great, thank you. That's a great question. In order for us to balance the budget without making cuts, we need to reopen the state, which is the most important issue for business. As a first responder, I have personally seen shortages of personal protective equipment. With the proper supply of personal protective equipment, we can operate as a state and keep our workers working. More than 97% of business in Connecticut is small business, employing about 50% of the workforce. Through small business thriving and contributing, we can come closer to reducing our deficit while supporting our local towns, residents, and youth sports. We need to keep our seniors in Connecticut. They're being taxed at rates causing them to leave. We also need to limit spending to economic growth levels. Government should be measured in terms of the economy and how its size relates to private sector activity. Spending should be limited from growing faster than the cost of living. The state needs to adhere to an earmark ban, which directs funds to specific projects and bypasses competitive bidding. By not doing this, it only allows for a lower quality, higher cost product. We could reduce costs by having programs such as regional dispatch. In the fire department, we have a program called Task Force 51. When dispatched and activated, Cromwell takes over as dispatch for Rocky Hill, Cromwell, Newington, Weathersfield, and Berlin. Let's publish state contracts online and in real time, making them easier to view. A transparent portal can cut waste, identify inefficiencies, and allow taxpayers to be fiscal watchdogs. I will not support hidden taxes such as tolls. These types of taxes can be easily manipulated and distort economic activity, leading to less growth than if government acted within its own domain. Thank you. And for any more information, please visit me on my website, henryforstaterep.com, as we're limited to answers of about 2 minutes. Thank you.
Now, Connecticut has been one of the more aggressive states when it comes to shutting down businesses and schools during the pandemic. Do you think the governor is doing a good job with the shutdown, and what kind of support can be provided to the industries that have not been allowed to open up at all since March? And if positive cases are on the rise again, is our only choice to shut down the state again?
I do not believe so. The current state shutdown is actually going to have economic effects for years to come. The poor planning of our state leaders and lack of widespread personal protective equipment has forced business, small business in particular, into a downward spiral. We're seeing restaurants and shops closing for good. Government should have stepped up programs to help small business with, for example, online sales. So small business could compete with companies such as Amazon, which has had a devastating effect on local business. We need common sense legislation for business. Just last year, for instance, a bill was passed which increased taxes $2 billion and revenue spending. While the bill eliminated the business entity tax of $250, it actually increased annual filing fees and reduced income tax credits. This was ultimately a tax increase on business while being represented as a cut. I would not shut down the state again, but I would allow people who felt comfortable to take the necessary precautions and operate safely, to interact with their customers, the members of the public who still crave the personal attention only a small business can offer.
Now let's talk about public safety. There's been an increase in car thefts in Rocky Hill and across the state. And recently, the controversial Police Accountability Bill was passed. What can you do at the state level to help protect residents against car thefts and crime? And can you talk about the Police Accountability Bill and if you support it and why?
Great question. As a firefighter and a first responder, this one actually hits home with me. And I take this personally because as a firefighter, when there's a structure fire and we arrive on the scene in our full gear with our air pack and a water line, many minutes before, the police department has already been inside looking for people. And unlike us that wear protective equipment to go into a fire, they go inside with their everyday clothes. These people are heroes. There was recently an article on WFSB3 titled "New Bill Signed into Law Creates Leniency for Juveniles Accused of Stealing Cars." Many people don't know at this point, if you're under 18 years old and you steal a car right in front of a police officer, I said right in front of a police officer, he cannot pursue you. For the period 1/1/19 to 12/1/19 in Rocky Hill, there were 19 car thefts. For that same time frame after the bill was enacted and adopted and approved, of 12/1/19 to today, we have had 42 car thefts in Rocky Hill, showing it has more than doubled. This bill has emboldened criminals, with the only penalty for juveniles as classroom time, and then the charges get dropped. Weathersfield Police Chief Citran did not support this bill. Rocky Hill Police Chief Custer did not support this bill. Newington Police Chief Clark did not support this bill. I do not support this bill, yet my opponent did. I support our police. I do not support the new removal of immunity bill. My opponent voted for it. If you have a friend, a family member, or know someone who is a police officer, please call them. Ask them what they think of the bill. Don't just take my word for it. This is too important. Unfortunately, this topic cannot be covered in 2 minutes. And I would once again ask you to please go to Henry Vassell for staterep.com to learn more or to ask any questions you might have. Thanks.
Aside from COVID-19 taking a toll on businesses and residents have had to deal with an increase in utility costs from Eversource, MDC, and the internet companies. What can you do to help keep these costs down? And is there anything you can do to bring us more choices with our utilities?
Absolutely. This is another question as a small business owner that affects me from day to day. Utility expenses are increasing, and they're actually increasing at an alarming rate, as all of you know, with little prior knowledge or input from customers. I would invite the public to regulating boards allowing improved input on decision making. I would put the word public back into public utilities. Connecticut electric rates, as an example, is the third highest in the United States. The first highest is Hawaii. Folks, that's an island. Number 2 is Alaska. It might as well be an island. And number 3 being Connecticut. It does not make any sense to me. The rise in utility costs needs to slow down. Choices of utility companies is a discussion we need to have, and we should have sooner than later. The current providers, however, own the distribution system and can raise the transmission or delivery costs at any time. This may in fact increase rates more. I'm sure there are cost savings out there. We need to ask the questions. We need to look into it deeper. And unfortunately, no one has asked the questions so far.
In the past few years, there have been bills introduced in Connecticut for a government-run healthcare option. The insurance and healthcare industries, which are some of Connecticut's largest employment sectors, are against a public option, saying that they will be forced to cut jobs. Are you in favor of a public option healthcare plan? And if so, what will the plan look like? If you're against it, how will you address the rising cost of health insurance?
Great. That's a great question, and that's very important to a lot of people. Healthcare is a topic that's important to me. I've had health problems since I was 9 years old, so over 40 years now. And my hospital bills, even the co-pays, sometimes are in the thousands. So this really hits home with me. Today's healthcare plans are not working. I believe everybody knows it. I do support healthcare reform, but at the present time, I cannot recall any healthcare programs the state has managed and managed well. We should start the reform through the rate review process and increase public input. Healthcare innovations should also be expanded to improve monitoring of prescription drugs, such as opiates, and greater access to evidence-based treatments. We should expand public awareness and education campaigns. I do support telehealth and its expansion. Through healthcare practice rules and license modifications, we can make healthcare more widespread and more easily accessible. On another important healthcare note, there was recently a bill, SB 48. This bill would require prescription drug manufacturers to share product samples with generic manufacturers. This bill did not pass, and Ms. Wood did not vote for it.
Now I've come to a point in the show where we have 3 questions that I'm looking to have quicker answers. And the first one is, if tolls are back on the table, would you vote for tolls in Connecticut?
No.
Marijuana is a hot topic, and if this was on the table, would you vote to legalize recreational marijuana?
Not at this time, no.
What is one cost you would cut or reduce from the state budget today?
That's probably the easiest question I've had this evening. The pay and benefits for politicians.
That's everything I have for questions, but in closing, is there anything you would like to add to today's program for the viewers?
Yep, I just want to say thank you to the chamber and all of you for viewing, also for your time and your support. Once again, my opponent voted for, approved, and passed major police reform in response to a national conversation, not in response to what is actually happening in Connecticut. In a most irresponsible way, they did it in special session with little to no input. This bill has hurt the public and devastated law enforcement even worse. It has emboldened criminals. This isn't the Connecticut we want to raise our families in. You know, I want to tell you something. Ladies and gentlemen, when a first responder like myself, police, fire, EMS, or even our military or National Guard comes to you in a time of need, we are there to help. You will never hear us ask your political party affiliation, where you're from, or your religion. Simply put, we don't care. We are there to help. Please vote for change and common sense November 3rd. And as always, please support our police, fire, EMS, and veterans. Thank you and have a good evening.
Well, Henry, on behalf of the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank you for participating in this program today. You can find out more information about the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce at rhchamber.org. And please go support a Rocky Hill business today. Thanks for watching. Today, we're joined by Senator Matt Lesser, representing Connecticut's 9th District in the State Senate. This district covers Rocky Hill, Cromwell, Newington, and parts of Wethersfield and Middletown. Matt, I'd like to start off by hearing a little bit about you, and can you tell our audience about your background and how you ended up here running for office?
Well, first off, Brian, thank you so much for hosting this forum again and for all of your work at the Rocky Hill Chamber. I know this has been the toughest year for small businesses that anybody can remember. And so the work of the Chamber is more important now than ever before. I am finishing up my first term, serving the people of Rocky Hill as your state senator. I wear a number of hats up in Hartford. I'm the chairman of the Insurance Committee. I'm a deputy majority leader, do a lot of work focused on healthcare. But prior to serving in the state Senate, I served in the State House for a number of years, and I live with my wife, Sarah, in Middletown. She's an attorney, and we are expecting our first child early in the new year. So excited to keep working for the people of Rocky Hill. I know it's been a very tough year, but doing everything we can to support people and small businesses at a tough time.
Excellent. Let's jump right into it. The first question is about the budget. So 2021 is a budget year. The state is projected to have a deficit of over $2 billion in each of the next 2 budget cycles. Tax revenue is projected to be down from businesses as well as income tax from employees. How do you propose we balance the budget, and can we do this without raising taxes on businesses that are already struggling from the effects of the pandemic?
I think so. You know, one of the things that I think Connecticut doesn't get credit for, we had decades of bad fiscal management going back to the 1930s. But over the last few years, we've actually built up the largest rainy day fund in Connecticut history. Now, nobody could have possibly anticipated the COVID-19 pandemic or the harm that's caused to our state's economy. But the good news is that we entered the current recession, the pandemic, with the largest rainy day fund in state history, with our bond ratings way up. And that gives us some flexibility. It means that while states around us, New Jersey just came in an emergency special session needing to raise taxes, and other states are slashing spending, even though we need to maintain funding or increase funding for our schools to support them as they seek to reopen, to keep people safe. Connecticut's been able to keep an even keel. Ideally, the federal government would step up and support states. We're the ones who are on the front lines of managing the pandemic. But my hope is that using our state's rainy day fund, boy, is it raining right now, and some prudent fiscal management, we'll be able to start the new year off, take a assessment of where we are, have a better sense of exactly how big the deficit is and isn't, and then budget accordingly. But I think we can do so prudently, and the good news is that we're in a decent place right now. We're not in a position where we have to make some emergency decisions. The tough part about budgeting through the pandemic has been it's been a roller coaster ride. You know, sometimes the revenues are up, sometimes they're down. People, you know, the unemployment rate soared, and so not having to do any kinds of emergency budget measures has been a real luxury that Connecticut's had, thanks to the responsible, prudent budgeting that we did last year and the last couple of years.
Let's move to COVID response. Connecticut's been one of the more aggressive states when it comes to shutting down businesses and schools during the pandemic. Do you think the governor is doing a good job with the shutdown? And what kind of support can be provided to the companies that haven't even been able to open since March? And if positive cases rise, is our only choice to shut down the state again?
Well, it's an important and tough question, Brian. Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge the real loss that we've had. I know friends we've lost right here in Rocky Hill, in surrounding communities. We've lost in Connecticut twice as many people as were killed on 9/11. It has really devastated our state as it has the entire country and the world. But I do think Governor Lamont has done a stellar job of putting the science first, working to keep the public safe. And you can see that in the numbers, right? Connecticut has a lower infection rate than our neighboring states and other states around the country. And that's because our citizens are taking it seriously. We're not playing political games. We're focused on keeping people safe. Now, it has been really tough for a lot of small businesses. We've lost businesses in the state, and I get it. And so as of right now, we're moving into phase 3 reopening. The governor has been cautious, and I think everybody would hope that we don't have to shut down again. My hope going forward is that by using aggressive testing, track and tracing, we are able to do targeted responses to the pandemic rather than having to shut down the state as a whole or an entire sector of businesses. We can really focus on specific problems rather than going after the a giant section of the economy, because that I think is inefficient. It's not something we can sustain in the long term.
Well, let's now talk public safety. There's been an increase in car thefts in Rocky Hill and really across the entire state. Recently, the controversial Police Accountability Bill was also passed. Yes. What can you do at the state level to help protect residents against car thefts and crime? And can you talk a little bit about if you support the Police Accountability Bill and why?
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for that question. So the issue of car thefts is not a Rocky Hill issue, it's a Connecticut issue. It's happening all across Connecticut, but also all across the country. And some of that is driven simply by technology. Used to have locked. That's something we're hearing, is that there's just more cars that are unlocked, and we're trying to figure out why car thefts are up nationally, and part of it is just a technology issue, but there is a real thing there too. There are thefts in every community in the state. There certainly are in Rocky Hill. Someone tried to steal my car a few months ago, and it's something it's a real problem. So what I've been doing is focused on giving more tools to police, to the Department of Children and Families to address the issue, because a lot of what we're seeing is, we believe, led by young people, by juveniles, and making sure that we give more tools to respond to keep the public safe. So last year, I'm a Democrat, but I was proud to support a bill introduced by my Republican colleague, Senator Len Fasano, designed to give more tools to people to respond to car thieves and car theft rings and keep the public safe. Regarding the Police Accountability Bill, look, I know that that's a controversial issue. It's a big, important bill that tries to do a whole bunch of things. But what I'm focused on doing is not targeting police, but trying to figure out how we can address and heal some of the rifts that have hit our country. We can't, I think, have public safety if we have a giant section of the population that doesn't feel that the police are there to protect them. So we got to take some tough decisions, figure out how we can build trust on both sides. Certainly, I've been able to work with the Rocky Hill Police quite a bit, and I have the utmost respect for the men and women of the Rocky Hill Police Department, and making sure that we can build trust and confidence throughout the entire population, I think, is really critical going forwards. There are some areas of that bill that need work, and as the chairman of the insurance committee, I can tell you, for example, I've been really focused on making sure that police officers can get access to insurance coverage, which is, I think, something that everybody needs in this state. So I'm happy to work with the police officers in this town and make sure that we're keeping people safe.
Aside from COVID-19 taking a toll on businesses and residents have had to deal with an increase in utility costs from Eversource, MDC, and the internet companies. What can you do to help keep these costs down? And is there anything you can do to bring us more choice when it comes to our utilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. First off, the increase we saw this summer was outrageous. It was led by a 2017 law that raised rates that went into effect this summer. And basically every ratepayer in the state, every business, every homeowner, every family in the state is subsidizing a power plant in southeastern Connecticut. And that's why our rates went up. I led the fight against that bill. I think it was outrageous. If I had all the power, that would never have passed. And so what I'm asking the state utility regulators, PURA, to do is to throw out the contract that put that subsidy into effect. It might have been in the best interest of ratepayers under some circumstances, but right now in the middle of a pandemic, we can't afford any kind of rate increases, and I think that was outrageous. What we also did was just last week came in to pass what we're calling the Take Back the Grid Act, which is designed to give more tools to regulators to fight rate increases that Eversource and the other utilities are asking for. But the other thing we can do, and we did do, is increase the service standards. Say that we will not tolerate a power outage longer than 96 hours. If we see one, we will cut the CEO's pay. We will make sure that we're setting basic manpower standards, because 10 years ago we had a problem with the two storms that caused extended power outages, and since then we actually have fewer line workers now than we had then. And to my mind, that's outrageous. We should have more people. They are taking the money and they've tripled their stock price. They've increased their CEO's salary, but they're not investing in the company, and we have worse service and higher rates, and that is a terrible combination. And particularly if you care about manufacturing in Connecticut, the price of electricity is very tied to the strength of our manufacturing sector. And one last thing I'll just say is that I've really been honored to pick up the support of a lot of small businesses in our area, including the endorsement of the Connecticut Association of Realtors, which I think is the largest single organization of small business owners in the state of Connecticut. And it's precisely because I've been working on issues like healthcare and energy costs that are really so foundational to the bread and butter workings of so many small businesses, as you know, Brian.
And that brings us right into our next question, which is healthcare. In the past few years, there's been some bills introduced in Connecticut for a government-run healthcare option. The insurance companies and healthcare industries, which are some of Connecticut's largest employment sectors, are against the public option, saying that they will be forced to cut jobs. Are you in favor of a public option healthcare plan? And if so, what will the plan look like? If you're against it, how will you address the rising cost of health insurance?
Yeah, I'm all for more options and for the public option. I think the one group you didn't mention, Brian, were doctors, and the state's doctors are in support of a public option because right now, if you are looking at the small group market, that is the insurance marketplace that small businesses participate in. Even the insurance industry admits that it's broken right now. You cannot get high quality, affordable insurance in Connecticut. And so we got to do something. What that's doing is it's tilting the playing field even more in favor of big business at the expense of small business. And if you're a family out there trying to buy insurance on the exchange, people are finding that, deductibles that are through the roof. And part of the reason is there are just two insurance companies that people can pick from. And so they've been able to carve up the market. There's not enough choice. I believe in competition. And one aspect of competition is saying, look, if the insurance plan is good enough for me as your state senator, you should be able, as a small business, to be able to take a look and see if you want to buy the same plan that I get. And if you don't want to, that's fine. I don't care. But giving people that option, I think, is really, really important. If there is one thing that we can do to help small businesses, except for lowering the cost of electricity, I think it's making health insurance more affordable. And I'll just say one last thing. We're in the middle of a pandemic right now. And one of the things that people don't realize is we've seen the unemployment rate go up, is that people lose their employer-sponsored health insurance at the worst possible time, at the time when families more than ever really can't afford to go without health insurance. So we need lower deductibles, we need lower premiums, we need more choice. And we can do that, we can make that available without costing taxpayers anything, because we just simply charge people costs. We just focus on increasing competition. And I think that will have a huge impact on making healthcare more affordable in this state.
Thank you. And right now I have a few quick questions. We call this our rapid fire questions. Mm-hmm. And we're looking for just a quick answer, yes or no, or something short with it. The first one is, if tolls come back onto the table, is that something you would support?
Well, look, I will say this. We have a transportation funding crisis in Connecticut. It's a long-term problem. It didn't appear overnight. But I have been consistent that I'm going to look at every single proposal. I'm going to see how it affects the people I work for in Rocky Hill and the other towns that I represent. And if I think it's in the interest of voters, I'll certainly support it. What I can tell you is I didn't vote on any package the last 2 years because we didn't have a proposal that I thought was in the best interest of my constituents. So I'm going to put the constituents that I work for first. That's what I've done every single day. And as far as I know, there are no tolling plans that are active. And I think there's a reason for that, because folks have not found a way to balance the issues of making sure that we're providing investment, but that we're not redirecting funding from one part of the state to the other, that we're not causing traffic backups, sending traffic onto local roads, and that we're complying with federal law. And if we're able to find ways to do all of that and to not make commuting unaffordable, I'll take a look at it. But we got to really focus on the details.
A lot of people are talking about balancing the budget with taxes for marijuana. Would you vote to legalize recreational marijuana?
I would. And I think that one of the things people may not realize is that Rocky Hill has really become a hub, if you will, of the medical marijuana industry in Connecticut. We have the largest medical marijuana grower in the state, one of the largest in the country, right here in Rocky Hill. And it's about jobs and keeping property taxes down, and there haven't been any public safety issues that I'm aware of associated with it. So I think we can do it responsibly. We can keep it out of the hands of kids and make sure that we're regulating it accordingly. And I don't think the public health issues are unmanageable. So yes, I think we should join our neighboring states. I mean, you can drive an hour from here and be in Massachusetts and buy a marijuana legally there. I don't see why you shouldn't be able to do so right here either, as long as we're managing the nuisance issues. People may not want long lines of cars on their street or something like that, but we can solve all of those and public safety issues as well.
What is one cost you would cut or reduce from the state budget today?
Well, there's a lot of things. I will just say that I think one of the things that we do too much of is we hire outside consultants, and particularly, we were just talking about DOT and the structural issues there. There's some evidence that we wind up paying as much as 2 times the cost for projects as our neighbors in Massachusetts, because we don't have the engineering experience in-house to design projects. And so we outsource a lot of the design work, and that inflates costs of projects. And I do think we need to solve some of our revenue issues, but I also understand I don't want to waste money any more than anybody else does. And reducing some of these consulting fees would certainly go a long way towards that.
Well, that's everything I have for questions. In closing, is there anything you would like to add to today's program for today's viewers?
Well, I just want to thank you again, Brian, for putting this together. Obviously, we'd love to be there in person, but the pandemic is affecting all aspects of our lives these days. It's been an honor to serve Rocky Hill over the last 2 years. Worked well with Representative Kerry Wood. We were able to save the Rocky Hill Ferry, which I know was really important to the community, the longest running ferry in American history. We were able to increase funding for the Rocky Hill schools 2 consecutive years. We cut taxes. We cut the business entity tax, which I know is critical for small businesses, eliminated taxes on Social Security. We did not raise the income tax. We did not raise the sales tax. We balanced the budget. And we're focused on supporting businesses during the pandemic. So there's a lot more work to do. I really focused on the issue of healthcare in particular, and just this week was named one of the top 25 people in the state on healthcare by the Power 25 by the Hartford Business Journal, which I think is a great honor that I'm happy to have. And I will just keep on working with all the small businesses in the district and would invite your members to reach out to me directly. If there's anything that I can do to be helpful, call me. I'm here to work for you, and I'm honored to have your support.
Well, Matt, on behalf of the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank you for participating today. And you can find out more information about the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce at rhchamber.org. And please go support a Rocky Hill business today. Thank you for watching. Today I'm joined by Richie Rulio, candidate for Connecticut's 9th District and State Senate. This district covers Rocky Hill, Cromwell, Newington, and parts of Wethersfield and Middletown. Let's get started. I'd like to start off by hearing a little bit about you. Can you tell our audience about your background and how you ended up here running for office?
Yes, well, hello, Brian, and thank you very much for having me on. I'm very honored to be here with you today. My name is Richie Rulio. I'm a candidate for State Senate in the 9th District, comprised of the towns of Rocky Hill, Cromwell, Newington, Middletown, and my hometown of Wethersfield. I was born and raised in Wethersfield. I attended Xavier High School and graduated from there in 1981. I graduated from UConn Storrs in 1986 with a degree in history and political science. I presently live in Rocky Hill with my wife and my children. I've been a small business owner my entire adult life, actually, and have since incorporated my son into the fold, into the business, after a near fatal injury I had a few years back. I've been a professional athlete in Florida and in Connecticut for a number of years. I've also been, my passion is to play music. I've performed playing professional music since I was 15 years old. And I have dedicated the last 14 years of my life to youth volunteer programs in Rocky Hill. I have been director of the Park and Recreation Youth Basketball League for the 9th to 12th grade youth boys. And it's been tremendously rewarding, and I would think of doing nothing else with my time. I have extensive relationships in both the business and trade fields in district and throughout Connecticut as well. I am running for office because I feel I am the best person for the job. I am a person who will have every district resident's best interest in mind, and I have a proven business and life leadership record that will guide me when creating and passing laws for all constituents of the 9th District. I am a lifelong resident, and having met thousands of people along the way of life in school and sports and work and music, and my most prized accomplishment is that of being a husband and a father. So I know the district, I am the district, and I do feel I am the best candidate for the district.
Let's go right into it, and we'll start off with the budget. Because 2021 is a budget year, and the state is projected to have a deficit of over $2 billion in each of the next 2 budget cycles. Tax revenue is projected to be down from businesses, as well as income tax from employees. How do you propose we balance the budget, and can we do this without raising taxes on businesses that are already struggling from the effects of the pandemic?
Well, however we work through and discuss solutions for the budget and the projected deficits that we must keep in mind, that we need to alleviate the tax burden that is on the taxpayers themselves at all costs. We in Connecticut have the second highest tax burden in the nation. As Connecticut residents, we have to work 4 extra weeks per year on average just to cover our tax bills. And proposed tax increases to pay for continued larger government in Connecticut adversely affects the most vulnerable people in society. It affects families, it affects individuals working paycheck to paycheck. It affects retired seniors on fixed incomes, etc. The wealthiest are able to survive this, obviously, and persevere, while many others have lost their livelihoods, struggling to make ends meet. The most important directive, I feel, is balancing this budget with projected deficits is that we need to be fiscally conscientious. That's how. We must include and incorporate auditing experts in order to find the best way to spend and allocate funds, whereby there will be no additional pork and obviously certainly no acceptable waste in our forecast going forward. With audit and financial specialists, we can sit and work this through to find the best way possible to get the maximum value for every dollar that needs to be spent. We will do this in the best, most efficient way possible in order to do this without raising taxes on businesses that are already struggling to survive, obviously from the effects from the pandemic. There are many that are struggling and they need as much support and patronization from locals as possible. I would recommend incentives, promotion of shopping local, buying local, to assist these companies in regaining a foothold going forward in order to become profitable again.
Let's talk about the COVID response. Connecticut has been one of the more aggressive states when it comes to shutting down businesses and schools during the pandemic. Do you think the governor is doing a good job with the shutdown? And what kind of support can be provided to the industries that have not been allowed to open at all since March? And if positive cases rise again, as our only choice to shut down the state again?
Well, I do have to say that Connecticut has been very proactive in our response to the pandemic, both with commerce and with schooling. I give credit where credit is due. The governor has done things in the interest of Connecticut residents, and I applaud him for that. I also feel that the restrictions many have felt from this pandemic are very constraining, and many companies and industries may or may not return to normal, if at all. The airline industry and companies like that, for example, Pratt & Whitney, Collins Aerospace, have been decimated and crushed on the leisure travel side. They will survive because they do have government contracts for defense and that. But there are thousands, and many of those live in our towns, our surrounding towns within our district. And these people are hurting from the lockdown. They're living off their savings, they're living off 401ks, et cetera. And we as a state and as well as a district should again patronize businesses that are the engine and the lifeblood of this economy, this local economy, as well as the national economy. As a senator, I would propose sitting with business and industry leaders in order to offer comprehensive solutions to rebound from this economic disaster that's upon all of us. I do believe that if the cases do rise and do arise again in our district and our state, that we first must do what's in the best interest of our safety and address this in real time. If we see this spike in the winter, that would be another blow to already hurting individuals and small businesses alike. I firmly believe we must persevere. We must remain vigilant. We must wear our mask. We must maintain proper distancing and hygiene as well. But we must continue to go about our lives in the fashion that is necessary. If we do so, I believe we will get through this. The pandemic of 1918 and 1920 eventually subsided, but not without high cost of lives lost. It was terrible. And we hope with a vaccine, a combination of therapies, with all the recommendations I previously stated, that we could push through this extremely difficult period. Our state, our country, our world has been affected by this, and it's really been a travesty. It's very difficult, but I will say one quote that has always been profound in it, and again, it really is appropriate here. As Winston Churchill quoted in 1940, he said, "When you're going through hell, just keep on going." And that is what we must do, and that is what we will do.
Well, let's now talk public safety. there's been an increase in car thefts in Rocky Hill and really across the entire state. Recently, the controversial police accountability bill was also passed.
Yes.
What can you do at the state level to help protect residents against car thefts and crime? And can you talk a little bit about if you support the police accountability bill and why?
Well, good question. I first want to start out by saying I am firmly and sincerely opposed to HB 6004, which is the police accountability bill. In its present form, this bill will destroy law enforcement as we know it. The qualified immunity portion of the bill can and will lead to costly judgments against officers. They will be personally liable and therefore could be financially devastated from someone claiming abuse or injury and falsely making accusations to do so. This bill also will affect the officers who may be tentative to take action or proaction work out of fear of ramifications or lawsuits against them. This is just wrong. I am firmly for sensitivity training. I am also for barring of certain procedures against individuals, and I believe all officers would be willing to cooperate with these across all departments and all within our district. Our district has some of the finest law enforcement anywhere, and it is a disservice to all men and women who serve us to be lumped together and to be considered problematic and in need of restriction to do their job to the best of their ability. I have spoken to police chiefs of every town within our district, and they have all said that they support me and my stand on the police accountability bill. I would propose even stronger penalties, though, and financial fines to those youths who are committing these crimes. The bills that have been proposed and passed are not strong enough of a deterrent, and they need to be worded much stronger, and that would result in more than just a slap on the wrist. This must be stopped, and a strong deterrent and message of the law is absolutely necessary, as this is terribly problematic to our communities, in our district, and our state. I will work to fix this through proper legislation, and help for residents and businesses is a must for a strong society.
Aside from COVID-19 taking a toll on businesses and residents have had to deal with the increase in utility costs from Eversource, MDC, and the internet companies. What can you do to help keep these costs down? And is there anything you could do to bring us more choices with our utilities?
Well, I as a legislator and I as a senator will work with utilities to procure the best possible pricing for our constituents, work to appeal for structured forgiveness to those experiencing hardship, and structured payments for those able to repay from being behind on their bills. We need to sit with utility companies, express the fact that the burden on business, industry, and the individual homeowner is becoming too great to maintain month over month. Many are falling behind, and many are fighting just to keep their lights on. As previously stated, I would like to see competition for energy, water, and internet services to be the driving force for better pricing. I will take the time and meet with all heads and board members to see what ways we can work to limit constant price increases and sometimes faulty service.
Let's shift over to healthcare. In the past few years, there have been bills introduced in Connecticut for a government-run healthcare option. The insurance companies and healthcare industries, which are some of Connecticut's largest employment sectors, are against a public option, saying that they will be forced to cut jobs. Are you in favor of a public option healthcare plan? If so, what will this plan look like? And if you're against it, how will you address the rising cost of health insurance?
Well, I am against the public option healthcare plan. I am for all individuals with pre-existing conditions to have insurance with no increased premium or drop coverage because of that. So I want to make that very clear. But we need to work with state and the federal government to remove boundaries and control pricing through cross jurisdictions. Pricing should be able to be the best for the individual with whatever company they choose from wherever they live. This district is comprised of many thousands of people that work in the insurance and healthcare industry. It would be an absolute travesty and it would be devastating to our economy if we did adopt a different program of nationalized and socialized medicine and actually having very difficult period of time economically in the district with individuals that would be laid off and from a changing industry perspective, And it's just not in the best interest of our constituents within this 9th district. We are comprised of too many people that make up this district in the healthcare and industries as well as insurance. And we just cannot afford that.
Now, the next 3 questions are meant to be some quicker answers. So let me start off with tolls. If tolls are brought back up for a vote, would you vote for tolls?
No on tolls. Absolutely not.
A lot of people are talking about balancing the budget with taxes for marijuana. Would you vote to legalize recreational marijuana?
No, I would also vote no on legalized marijuana.
What is one cost you would cut or reduce from the state budget today?
Well, I don't think there's any one specific one. I would look at any and all pork projects, any and all waste that will be audited throughout the budget from top to bottom. No one specific cost. All will be fully examined, audited, and chosen. If something is working, let's continue doing it. If something is not, then we need to change. We need to sit down, hash this out, go through it line by line. We have all the time in the world to get this right, and we need to do that in the best interest of being fiscally responsible and conscientious of paying our bills. And that's what we need to do from now on going forward.
Now, that's all the questions I have today, but in closing, is there anything that you would like to add to today's program for the viewers?
Well, thank you very much again, Brian, for having me. In summary, I am the endorsed candidate from both the Republican and the Independent parties, and for good reason, I feel. They have both seen my political agenda. They have spelled out exactly what I'm ready to enact on my first day once I get elected on November 3rd. I am the best candidate for this Senate seat. I am the district. I am for everyone within our district. There are no political boundaries as to who I want to assist. I want to be the voice of the 100,000+ district residents, and I will do so with honor, integrity, diligence, and respect toward all. I thank you very much for your consideration. Vote for change. Change starts here. Vote for Richie Rulio for State Senate in the 9th District. Thank you very much.
Well, Richie, on behalf of the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank you for participating in this event. And if you'd like to find out more information about the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce, you can do it at rhchamber.org. And please go support a Rocky Hill business today. Thanks for watching.